welcome to Cloud Institution. So today we are going to discuss what is Azure questions and answers. So question number 1. Your company has several departments. Each department has a number of virtual machines. The company has an Azure subscription that contains a resource group named RG1. All VM are located in RG1. You want to associate each VM with its respective department. What should you do? Option A. Create Azure Management Group for each department. Option B. Create a resource group for each department. Option C. Assign tag to the virtual machine. Option D. Modify the settings of the virtual machine. Find the correct answer. Option C is the correct answer, that is assign tags to the virtual machine, because in Azure, tags are metadata element that you can assign to Azure resources such as virtual machine. To logically organize them, tags help to categorize resources by department, costs and centers or other criteria without altering their placement within a resource group. So let's move on to question number 2. The question is included in a number of questions that depicts the identical setup. However, every question has distinctive results. Establish if the solution satisfies the requirement. Your company has an Azure Active Directory subscription. You want to implement an Azure Active Directory conditional access policy. The policy must be configured to require member of the global administrator group to use multi-factor authentication and an Azure AD joint device when they connect to Azure AD from untrusted location. Solution. You can access the multi-factor authentication page to alter the user settings. Does the solution meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. Find the correct answer. Option B is the correct answer, that is no. Because to implement an Azure AD conditional access policy requiring multi-factor authentication, that is MFA, and an Azure AD joint device for the global administrator, you must configure these requirements through the conditional access policies in Azure Active Directory, not directly from the multi-factor authentication setting page. Okay, so let's move on to third question. The question is included in the number of questions that depicts the identical setup. However, every question has a distinctive result. Establish if the solution satisfies the requirement. Your company has an Azure Active Directory subscription. You want to implement an Azure AD conditional access policy. The policy must be configured to require member of the global administrator group to use multi-factor authentication and an Azure AD joint device when they connect to Azure AD from untrusted location. Solution. You access the Azure portal to alter the section control of the Azure AD conditional access policy. Does the solution meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. Find the correct answer. Option B, that is no, because accessing the Azure portal to alter the section control of the Azure AD conditional access policy does not directly address the requirement for require multi-factor authentication for global administrator when connecting from untrusted location. The solution needs to specify configure conditional access policies to enforce multi-factor authentication. Okay, let's move on to fourth question. The question is included in the number of questions that depicts the identical setup. However, every question has distinctive results. Establish if the solution satisfies the requirement. Your company has an Azure Active Directory subscription. You want to implement an Azure AD conditional access policy. The policy must be configured to require members of the global administrator group to use multi-factor authentication and An Azure AD join device when they connect to Azure AD from untrusted location. Solution: you access the Azure portal to alter the grant control of Azure AD. Conditional access policy. Does the solution meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. So the correct answer is yes, because to configure an Azure AD conditional access policy that enforces multi-factor authentication (MFA) and requires an Azure AD joiner device to global administrator connecting from untrusted location, you must access the Azure portal, navigate to Azure Active Directory. Go to Settings, go to Conditional Access, configure Grant Control Settings to enforce MFA and Azure AD Joint Device requirement. By accessing the Azure portal and modifying the grant control settings of the condition access policy, you are correctly implementing the required security policies. Therefore, the solution meets the goal. So let's move on to fifth question. You are planning to deploy an Ubuntu server, a virtual machine, to your company's Azure subscription. You are required to implement a customer deploy that includes adding a particular trusted root certification authority. Which of the following you must use this to create the virtual machine? Option A, the new Azure RM VM CMD let. Option B, the new AZVM CMD let. Option C, the create AZVM CMD let. Option D, the AZVM create command. Find the correct answer. Option D is the correct answer, that is the AZVM create command, because this command is part of the Azure CLI and is specially designed for creating Azure virtual machine.